I need to tell you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. Right now, at this very moment, you're purchasing three specific items that are quietly draining your wealth. Not slowly, not gradually, systematically. And the disturbing part? You think you're being smart when you buy them. I've spent 37 years studying the economic patterns embedded in ancient Semitic texts, and what I discovered about these three purchases changed everything I thought I understood about prosperity. The third item on this list is something 87% of people buy weekly, and it's the primary reason their bank accounts never grow beyond a certain threshold. I'll reveal it at the 13-minute mark. But first, you need to understand why this knowledge was deliberately hidden from you. Let me take you back to a moment that shattered my understanding of wealth. My grandfather Zalman was a quiet man who owned nothing impressive. No luxury vehicle, no designer clothing. He lived in a modest apartment in a neighborhood most people avoided. Yet when he passed, we discovered something astonishing. He had accumulated more wealth than everyone in our extended family combined. Not through inheritance, not through luck, through a purchasing philosophy so counterintuitive that when he first explained it to me, I thought he was confused. I was 23, freshly graduated, excited about my first real paycheck. I bought an expensive coffee machine, one of those sophisticated European models. I was proud. I invited Zalman over to show it off. He looked at it for a long moment, then asked me a question that haunted me for years. "Nephew, did you buy a convenience or did you purchase a master?" I didn't understand. He sat me down and explained something he called the principle of hidden servitude. Every object you bring into your life, he said, makes one of two promises. The first promise is service. I will work for you. The second promise is slavery. You will work for me. Most people, he explained, cannot tell the difference until it's too late. The coffee machine I bought? It had made me its servant. It required specific pods, regular descaling, expensive maintenance. I had purchased ongoing obligation disguised as convenience. This wasn't philosophy. This was economic architecture built into the fabric of reality itself. And it directly connects to the first thing you must never buy. Before I reveal it, I need you to do something. If you're serious about protecting your financial future, write these 4 words in the comments. I recognize hidden servitude. Don't just read them, write them. This isn't engagement for my channel. This is a psychological commitment device that activates your awareness. The moment you declare recognition publicly, your brain begins scanning for what you previously ignored. Do it now, I'll wait. Good. Now we begin. The first thing you must never buy, anything that creates permanent dependency. Listen carefully because this is more sophisticated than it appears. I'm not talking about addictive substances. I'm talking about products specifically engineered to require endless repurchasing. Proprietary systems, ecosystem locks, subscription traps disguised as ownership. Here's the ancient economic law that governs this. The mechanism of perpetual leakage. In traditional wisdom texts, there's a concept called the vessel with cracks. You can pour wealth into it endlessly, but if the vessel itself is damaged, nothing accumulates. Dependency purchases are those cracks. They appear small, insignificant, a few dollars here, a monthly fee there, but they compound into financial hemorrhaging. Let me give you the framework for identifying these purchases. Ask yourself 3 questions before buying anything. First, does this product function without requiring future purchases from the same company? Second, can this product be repaired with generic components? Third, if the company disappeared tomorrow, would this product still deliver value? If you answer no to any of these questions, you're not buying a product. You're enrolling in a wealth extraction system. I've watched this pattern destroy financial futures for decades. A person buys a printer that only works with branded ink cartridges. The printer costs $60. Over 5 years, they spend $800 on ink. They didn't buy a printer. They bought a miniature ATM for the manufacturer, installed in their own home, and they paid for the privilege. This goes deeper than you think. The pattern extends to razor systems that only work with proprietary blades, coffee makers that reject generic pods, vehicles with computers that only dealerships can reprogram, software that stops functioning without annual payments. Each one is a small sovereignty violation. Each one is a piece of your economic autonomy you've sold for convenience. The traditional community I studied recognized this pattern centuries ago. They had a principle: never place your sustenance in another man's locked box. If you needed something essential, you owned the means to maintain it independently. They bought tools that lasted generations, not products that expired by design. Here's your implementation timeline. Within 7 days, audit your current subscriptions and dependency purchases. Calculate the annual cost. Within 14 days, identify which ones can be eliminated and replaced with ownership-based alternatives. Within 30 days, implement the replacements. You'll be astonished at what you discover. Most people find they're spending 12 to 18% of their income on dependency purchases they didn't consciously choose. The second thing you must never buy: status signaling devices disguised as investments. This is where it gets dangerous, because this category is specifically designed to deceive intelligent people. These purchases use a very specific psychological exploit. They make you believe you're investing in your future when you're actually just broadcasting your present insecurity. The ancient principle here is called the trap of hollow symbols. In the old texts, there's a story about a merchant who bought increasingly elaborate signs for his shop, while his actual inventory diminished. Eventually, people came to admire the signs, but nobody bought anything because there was nothing valuable inside. The merchant went bankrupt, surrounded by impressive symbols of success. This is happening in your life right now. You're buying objects that signal wealth instead of objects that create wealth. And the market knows how to exploit this perfectly. Designer accessories, luxury brand electronics, premium automobiles with depreciation curves steeper than cliff faces, investment watches that only invest in the watchmaker's wealth. These items promise to elevate your status, and that promise feels like strategy. It feels like you're playing the long game. You're not. You're paying premium prices for permission to advertise someone else's company, using your own body and money. Here's what makes this particularly insidious. These purchases often come wrapped in the language of investment. It's an investment in my professional image. It's an investment in quality. It's an investment in how people perceive me. Let me be brutally clear with you. An investment generates returns. These purchases generate the opposite. They extract maximum money for minimum utility, and they do it by targeting your fear of social invisibility. My grandfather Zalman taught me something profound about this. He said, "A man who needs objects to prove his worth has already confessed he believes he has none." That sentence restructured my entire relationship with purchasing. The traditional community had a fascinating approach to this. They wore modest, nearly identical clothing regardless of wealth level. This wasn't about humility performance. It was economic warfare against the status signaling industry. They refused to participate in the game where you spend money to broadcast how much money you have, because they understood something crucial. Every dollar spent on signaling is a dollar that cannot compound. Here's the practical test. Before any purchase, ask yourself, am I buying functionality or am I buying recognition? If you're honest, the answer is usually clear. And if the answer is recognition, you need to ask a harder question. Why do I need strangers to recognize me, and what am I trying to hide from myself? Within 7 days of implementing this principle, you'll notice something remarkable. The urge to purchase status items will intensify. This is the psychological withdrawal from social validation addiction. Sit with it. Don't medicate it with purchases. Within 30 days, the urge weakens substantially. Within 90 days, you'll look at luxury brand stores the way you'd look at casinos, as businesses specifically architected to extract maximum money from human psychological vulnerabilities. Now we arrive at the third item. This is the one that surprises everyone. This is the one that 90% of people buy regularly while believing they're being financially responsible. The third thing you must never buy: pre-made convenient solutions for problems you're capable of solving yourself. I can feel you resisting this already. You're thinking about your time value. You're thinking about efficiency. You're thinking about how busy you are. And that's precisely the psychological framework that keeps you poor. Here's the ancient principle: the degradation of competence. When you outsource a capability, you don't just purchase a service. You actively atrophy a skill. Every capability you lose makes you more dependent on markets, more vulnerable to price fluctuations, more permanently attached to income streams you don't control. This isn't about becoming self-sufficient in everything. That's impossible in modern society. This is about understanding the difference between strategic outsourcing and voluntary incompetence. Let me give you concrete examples. Pre-prepared meals, home cleaning services, lawn care, car washing, basic home repairs, minor alterations, simple financial calculations. Each of these represents a capability that humans possessed as baseline competence for thousands of years. And each one represents a recurring expense that compounds into substantial wealth extraction over a lifetime. I'm not talking about genuine expertise. I'm not suggesting you do your own electrical work or perform surgery on yourself. I'm talking about the vast category of simple tasks that humans are completely capable of doing, but have been conditioned to believe require professional intervention. The traditional community I studied had a concept called sacred ordinary competence. They believed that maintaining basic capabilities was a form of financial insurance. If you could cook, you could never be held hostage by food prices. If you could perform basic repairs, you could never be exploited by emergency service pricing. If you could manage your own basic finances, you could never be defrauded by predatory advisors. But there's something deeper here that most people miss. Every time you purchase a convenient solution for something you're capable of doing, you're making a declaration. You're declaring that your time is too valuable to be spent on basic life maintenance. And that declaration has a hidden cost. You become progressively more helpless and more dependent on income that you might lose at any moment. Here's what actually happens. You work longer hours to afford the convenience purchases. The longer hours create more stress and less time, which makes the conveniences feel more necessary. The conveniences cost more, requiring longer hours. It's a perfect loop of voluntary economic captivity. Let me tell you what changed for me. 5 years ago, I calculated how much I was spending annually on convenience purchases. The number was staggering, nearly $14,000. I made a commitment. I would learn to do every single thing I was paying others to do, provided it didn't require specialized certification. Within the first year, I had reduced that $14,000 to $4,000. But something more important happened. I had acquired 12 new capabilities. I could cook sophisticated meals. I could perform basic carpentry. I could maintain my vehicle. I could repair household items. I could manage my own taxes. Each skill made me less vulnerable and more sovereign. Within 3 years, I had reduced the $4,000 to less than $800. And those remaining expenses were genuine expertise I couldn't reasonably acquire. Medical care, legal counsel, specialized technical work. But here's what nobody tells you about this process. As you acquire capabilities, you don't just save money. You develop what ancient texts call expansive confidence. You begin to believe you can learn anything. You begin to see problems as opportunities for competence growth, rather than mandatory expenses. Your relationship with reality itself changes. The implementation timeline for this is longer. Within 7 days, make a list of every convenience purchase you made in the last 3 months. Within 30 days, identify which ones represent capabilities you could reasonably learn. Within 90 days, choose 3 and acquire them. You don't have to do this all at once, but you have to start. Now let me connect all 3 principles together, because separately they're just ideas. Together they're a complete economic philosophy. When you refuse dependency purchases, you maintain economic sovereignty. When you refuse status signaling, you redirect resources toward actual value creation. When you refuse convenience purchases for solvable problems, you build a portfolio of capabilities that insulate you from market exploitation. These 3 principles create what the ancient texts called the posture of wealth. It's not about how much you earn. It's about how little you can be forced to spend. The person who requires little cannot be easily controlled. The person with many capabilities cannot be easily exploited. The person immune to status pressure cannot be easily manipulated. Let me give you the harsh truth that nobody else will tell you. The entire consumer economy is designed to violate these 3 principles. Marketing, product design, social conditioning. Everything is engineered to make you dependent, insecure, and incompetent. Because dependent, insecure, incompetent people purchase endlessly. They're the ideal consumers. And you're being trained into that category from childhood. Every advertisement is an assault on your sovereignty. Every influencer flashing luxury items is exploiting your status anxiety. Every convenience product promising to simplify your life is actually complexifying your dependencies. The traditional community understood this. They had barriers, cultural practices that prevented market infiltration into core life domains. They weren't backward, they were defensive. They recognized that markets don't serve your interests, they serve their own. And if you don't actively defend your economic sovereignty, it will be systematically dismantled by entities much more organized than you are. Here's your complete implementation system. Create 3 lists: dependency purchases, status purchases, convenience purchases. Be ruthlessly honest. Calculate the annual cost of each category. Then ask yourself this question: what would my life look like if I redirected this money toward assets that generate passive income? For most people, these 3 categories represent 20 to 35% of their spending. That's not a small leak. That's a financial hemorrhage. If you redirected that toward even conservative investments, you'd be financially independent in 15 to 20 years, regardless of your current income level. But this isn't just about money. This is about power. Every dependency you eliminate is a small piece of power you take back. Every status purchase you refuse is a declaration of internal sufficiency. Every capability you acquire is a form of insurance against future uncertainty. The world is becoming more volatile. Supply chains are fragile. Employment is uncertain. Inflation is eroding purchasing power. In this environment, the people who thrive aren't the ones with the highest incomes. They're the ones with the lowest forced expenses and the most diverse capabilities. They're the ones who built sovereignty while everyone else built dependency. I'm going to tell you something that might offend you. If you're struggling financially and you're regularly buying items in these 3 categories, you're not a victim of the economy. You're a volunteer. You're choosing comfort over sovereignty. You're choosing image over reality. You're choosing convenience over capability. And I understand why. Nobody taught you differently. The entire system is designed to make these choices feel natural, reasonable, sophisticated even, but they're not. They're systematic wealth extraction disguised as modern living. Here's my final instruction, and this is where you decide if you're serious. Within 24 hours, cancel 1 subscription, refuse 1 status purchase you were planning, and identify 1 capability you're going to acquire. Don't wait. Don't plan more. Act. Because awareness without action is just entertainment, and I didn't create this to entertain you. If you implement these 3 principles, here's what happens. Within 90 days, you'll feel a shift. You'll stop feeling financially fragile. Within 6 months, you'll notice your savings growing in ways they never did before. Within 1 year, you'll have a different relationship with money entirely. It won't control you. You'll control it. But here's what's more important. Within 2 years, you'll have developed something invaluable: economic immunity. You'll be able to weather disruptions that destroy other people. Job loss won't terrify you. Price increases won't panic you. Economic downturns won't devastate you. Because you built a foundation of sovereignty that external circumstances cannot easily shake. This isn't theory. This is documented pattern across centuries of human behavior. The people who thrive across generations aren't the highest earners. They're the ones who master these 3 principles. They're the ones who refuse to participate in the dependency economy. They're the ones who build quiet, unglamorous, unimpressive-looking wealth that compounds over decades. You have a choice right now. You can close this video and continue your current trajectory. You can tell yourself that your situation is different, that these principles don't apply to you, that you'll start making changes later when things are less complicated. And if you make that choice, I promise you this: 5 years from now, you'll be having the exact same financial struggles you're having right now, just with different dollar amounts. Or you can make a different choice. You can implement these principles immediately and irreversibly. You can accept the temporary discomfort of changing ingrained patterns. You can endure the social pressure when people notice you're not participating in status games anymore. And if you make that choice, 5 years from now, you'll be a different person living in a different reality. I know which choice the wise make. I know which choice transforms lives. And I know which choice you're capable of making if you're willing to prioritize long-term sovereignty over short-term comfort. Subscribe to this channel if you want to continue learning these principles. This isn't motivational content. This is architectural understanding of how wealth actually functions in reality. And there's much more to learn. Peace.